Hi everyone! Welcome to video 2 of the James Range Bag by American Stitchers. In our last video we sewed all of our pocket pieces, got them all prepared, and sewed our flaps and our Velcro on our flaps. So in this video we're going to start attaching all of that to the bag and get some of our handles sewn on. So let's get going. Okay, we're going to start out by sewing our pleated pockets on the other side. If you remember in our first video we sewed the slip pocket on one side of the fabric of the bag, and now we're going to sew these pockets on the other side. So you want to measure up 5 inches from the bottom and 6.5 inches from each side. And you want to put a mark. That mark is where you're going to put the very corner of your pocket. Now, sometimes there's benefits to working with stripes, and it just so happens that my pocket's going to have to get lined up right on one of these stripes on this side. You're going to want to use pins here to hold this down, and I'm going to pin this one here. Move this, get this in. Okay, and then I'm going to put my ruler back down to make sure my bottom is good and straight. So I'm just lining my ruler up with the 5-inch mark at the very bottom, and then making sure that the bottom of my pocket is right flat against the ruler. And again, using a stripe here is working to my benefit because I can see exactly when my pocket is straight here. So I'm going to put a pin on this side. And then we want to do the same thing with our other pocket. We're going to go ahead and line up the edge. So now it's going to be this edge over here with your line, or with your dot here, 6.5 inches in. Now, interestingly, I meant to make these pockets go in the other direction, like my slip pocket, but obviously I didn't cut it out right, so they're going in the same direction on this side. And then I want to make sure that my bottom is good and straight on this pocket, so I'm going to put my ruler back down. And then pin this pocket in place. Now, your pockets are going to be fairly close together. Gail wrote in the instructions, her picture in her photo, that your pockets are going to be closer than hers. So this is going to be more what it's like here. Let me get this pinned and I'll show you. See, this is the bad thing about using pins, is that you have to okay, so see how close these are? This is about 3/4 of an inch away from each other. Okay, I'm going to double check and make sure they are 6.5 inches from the side, which that is. And this is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew around 3 sides of this pocket and sew around the 3 sides of this pocket and get these tacked down. Let me move all my stuff here. I'm going to move you over a little bit and we will get this sewn in place. you do want to use a top stitch length, and as you see, I've moved to my industrial machine. Now I have enough thickness that this machine will handle it. The waterproof canvas by itself would not have worked well. And also my domestic machine does not like double-sided tape, as y'all saw, and we obviously have some double-sided tape on here, so I thought I'd save myself a little bit of heartache and go ahead and move over here. Oh, I gotta turn my machine on, that would help. All right. Let me take one more stitch here. Okay, there's one. Let's get the other one sewn on. My pins out, and we have our pocket sewn on. Now you notice I did back stitch at the beginning of each one of these. I think it's important to go ahead and do that because these are going to get some use. Okay, so there we go, 2 pockets. So now we need to add the flaps. So take your ruler again. I'm going to take a smaller ruler this time, and we're going to place the flap with the Velcro side up, and it's going to end up being the top of the flap, the raw edge of the flap going towards the pocket. We want to go ahead and put that 1/2 inch above the pocket. Now, I am going to put a little bit, just my 1/8 inch double-sided tape on here, just on the very edge to hold this in place. So let me flip this over. Do that. And I'm just putting it on the very edge here. Okay, so 1/2 inch up, even with the pocket. Just like that. We're going to go ahead and stitch this down first. Let's do that, and then we will flip it and top stitch it. So go ahead and stitch this on. And then we're going to flip it down. You can actually go ahead and Velcro it down. And now we're going to top stitch right along here. So make sure it's straight. Okay, and then we have our pocket. And by doing it this way, you have, and I think, okay, so see here, you can see a little bit of the raw edge of this pocket. I stitched it at about 1/8 of an inch. I'm gonna go ahead and stitch it at 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just gonna have 2 rows of stitching up here to encase that. I just think it's gonna give it a nice look. And she probably tells you to stitch it at 1/4 inch. Let me double check. Okay, she doesn't say. I'm going to go ahead and just do one more row of stitching here. Tell you what, I need to change out my foot. I have my cording foot on, and it's messing me up a little bit here. Okay, so now you cannot see my raw edge there, and I just have 2 rows of stitching, which I'm gonna have to fix this because I'm not happy with the way that worked right there. But I'll do that in just a minute. We're gonna repeat this process for the other flap. So I'm gonna put a row of 1/8 of an inch tape on the top of my flap, on the right side of the top. I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch up from the pocket. So 1/2 inch. I'm going to lay this pocket piece down. Okay, we're going to sew this on. And then we're going to close the flap. Now I am going to make sure that my flap, when they're closed, are lined up, my two flap pieces here. Okay, and then we're going to do 2 rows of top stitching. We have 2 pockets on the bag. Pretty nifty. So now we're going to move into the lining pocket pieces. We're going to take a piece of our lining, one of our full lining pieces, and these pieces are so big it's hard to get them all in the shot. I did move you out, but you see this is the full pattern piece here. First we're going to mark our centers. So however you like to do that, go ahead and get those marked. Then I am going to go ahead and draw a line down my center, just kind of right here in the middle where the pocket's going to be. I'm also going to draw a line 5 inches from the bottom. And I'm going to do that the full width of the lining. Okay, so now I have a big T on my piece. From this center mark, you want to draw a line 2.5 inches to the right of it and 2.5 inches to the left of it. So there's the one to the right and the one to the left. Then from each side, we want to measure 4.5 inches. So 4.5 on this side and 4.5 from this side. Okay. Let's see if you can see my lines here. They're in blue. So essentially right now I have 5 lines. Well, I have a line on the bottom and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertical lines. So 1 horizontal, 5 verticals. And this is going to help us determine where we're going to put our pocket. So take one of your longer pocket pieces. You're going to line the edge over here up with the corner where your 2 lines over here intersect. And you want to obviously align it straight along your vertical line here. So I'm going to get some pins. I'm going to pin this on. Now my clips are on here just to hold my double-sided tape overnight, so I'm going to take these off. Okay, we're going to go to the other side and we're going to line this side of the pocket up with our other mark. Now, my pocket, for whatever reason, is slightly smaller than my marks, so I'm just going to bring mine in a tad. I want it centered, so I'm just going to move this over a little bit. So what that tells me is I must have taken one of my pleats or a couple of my pleats too big. That's probably what the culprit is there. If yours is doing the same thing, don't worry, just improvise. Okay, then essentially the hollows here in our pocket will be lining up with our 2 lines that we drew from the center, 2.5 inches from the center. I tell you, it's amazing when you stop using pins and then you have to go back to using them. You realize what a pain they can be. We'll put it nicely. What a pain. Okay. So this is what I have. So from here, we're going to go ahead and stitch that on. When we stitch this, we're going to stitch down, over. We're going to stitch up on our vertical line here. So if you want to transfer your line to the actual pocket, you can certainly do that. And I am going to make a mark on that to make sure I sew a straight line. And then we're going to come back down, we're going to go over, we're going to come to our other vertical line over here. Now these lines are the 2 lines that we drew 2.5 inches from the center. Okay. So I'm going to line this one up. All right, I'm going to stitch this on. Go ahead and move you over. Start over here. Make sure this side is straight. And away we go. Now as I'm sewing this bottom, making sure and adjusting the pocket and making sure it's lined up right on that line that I drew 5 inches from the bottom. Okay, I'm getting to this line over here. I'm going to turn, sew up it. Then I'm going to just pivot and turn around and sew right back down. Pivot, move in this direction. Okay, let's take these pins out. This is what I'm going to move you out over here. Okay, so this is what it looks like from the back. And then from the front, we have our pockets. Isn't that cool? So you want to repeat this for the other side as well. Once you have your pockets sewn on, you want to take, you should have cut some Velcro pieces that Gail gave you measurements for in the pattern. And you want to take the loop side. Now, again, the loop side is the soft side. And I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided tape. Down the back of each one of these. This is going to be for the removable dividers. So if you don't want those removable dividers, you can actually skip this step. And we're going to take this and we're going to go ahead and put it right on the stitches that we have where we divided our pocket. Okay? So you can overlap the bottom just a little bit here. And you just want to center them and just stick them down. Just like that. Now you may have to, up at the top here, just pull your elastic a little bit to get it to lay flat. And we're going to go ahead and sew all around both of these pieces. So let me move you over again. I'm just going to kind of pull on my elastic here to hold it flat. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the other one. Go ahead and sew it on. So when you're done, and I know everything's red, but I think you can see here. See if I can move my light. This is what you should have. So go ahead and sew the two loop pieces to your other piece as well. And then you'll have two pieces, both sides of your lining will be exactly the same. So you should have some 2-inch wide webbing. And if you don't have webbing or you chose to make your own handles, that's fine too. We're going to fold this webbing in half so it ends up being 1 inch, and we're going to sew up this long edge. So if you did make your own handles, in the end you want a 1 inch width handle. So we will just go ahead and sew this up. No, I'm going to just, as I go along, fold it. We do the same thing for the other handle. So to put your handles on, you want to measure 1 1/4 of an inch up from the flap. And go ahead and make a mark. Then we're going to measure from the center out. I'm going to put my mark on the 3. And we want our handles to be 5 3/4 of an inch apart. So just shy of 6. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of slide this handle underneath by about 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin it. I don't think double-sided tape is going to stick to these handles here. Make sure it's straight. And then we're going to make sure our handle's not twisted and line up our center again. And then put the other side of the handle here on the mark. And put a pin. I think this pin has about had it. Yeah, let's try a different pin. All right, I'm going to double check, make sure that it's the right spacing because that was a lot of moving around. Okay, that looks good. We're going to get the other panel piece. And this time we want to place the handles 1/2 inch above the pocket. So, and we still want to, of course, do it 5 3/4 of an inch apart. So I'm just going to make a couple marks here. I'm going to put this ruler centered on the mark here. Get a pin. Line it up. Make sure you're not twisted. Come around the other side. And do the same thing. Okay. So to double check to make sure all my measurements are right, I'm just going to go ahead and put these two panels together, just lay them side by side, and make sure my handles are the same. And I feel like this handle is up a little higher than this handle. So I'm just going to come down here a little bit. You don't want to pick up your bag and have one handle shorter than the other. Would not be good. Okay, let's see how that is. All right, I think that's good. We're going to just sew a box right down here, about a 1-inch box. So you can go ahead and draw that on there if you'd like to, just to make sure you get it about right. I think I'm going to just make a mark. Now we're going to cover these up so they don't have to be pretty or perfect or anything. I'm just going to make a line about an inch up from the edge of this handle. And again, just sew right down here, right around. So I'm going to move you over. Let's go ahead and sew that in place. Let's sew the other one. So I'm going to repeat with the second handle. Go ahead and sew my boxes to get the handle sewn on. You should have 4 handle tabs. So we're going to go ahead and put some double-sided tape on the back. And we're going to place them right over the ends of these handles. So I'm going to put a couple strips on here to hold it real well. And these handle tabs are a little bit bigger on one side. If you see here, here's the pattern piece. This side is longer than this side. I don't really think it matters how you put it on there. Just make sure you're consistent. Make sure that you realize one side is bigger than the other side when you put them on. You want to center it, obviously, and put it about the bottom of this tab about 1/4 of an inch below where your handle is. So I'm just going to stick that on there. And I put the larger side to the bottom. But again, you can flip-flop it if you'd like. Whatever suits you will work. So what I do want to make sure of is that both tabs are about the same distance from the top of my pocket. And it is a little over 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to eyeball it here first and then measure. This one's a little bit crooked. Okay. So we're going to stitch around. I'm going to pull my threads to the back and tie them off, and then I'm going to put a rivet right here in the middle. So let me move my other piece out of the way here temporarily. Move you over. We're going to go to a top stitch length and sew these on. Make sure your handle is straight as you sew across the top here. Let me pull this thread to the back while I can. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the other one on and then do the other side of the bag as well. So there's what it looks like stitched on. I'm going to do this one, do the other side, go ahead and set my rivets, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I have my handle connectors on. Put my rivets in. There's one side, and then here is the other side. I went ahead and put a rivet right here in the middle just to kind of help reinforce this so that when you're reaching in, it won't pull here. We're going to be putting handles along the side here, so don't put any rivets on either side if you're going to do this. Just put one in the middle. And that concludes video number 2. We'll see you next time.